right now, I'm gonna show you what art supplies you need for nature journaling, because I don't want you to have to do what I did when I was getting started with nature journaling and buy a ton of art supplies before you learn which art supplies you actually really need for nature journaling. Unless all you want is to go on an art supply shopping spree, but that's a topic for another video. Before we dive right in, let me remind you to stay until the end to see some tips on how to save yourself money. Before I even start talking about all the different nature journaling supplies that I like and that I think work well for nature journaling, let's talk about the criteria that will help you decide when a material or art supply is working well for you. The main criteria is, does it help you fill more pages? Does that art tool or whatever sketchbook help you fill more pages of nature journaling? If so, keep that. If not, get rid of it. If you have a certain type of sketchbook that you notice is slowing you down and you're not filling the pages very quickly, then that means that that supply is not good for you. Use that criteria whenever you're trying to test out supplies. The biggest decision you're gonna need to make in terms of nature journaling supplies is what sketchbook to use. I have a whole video about how to choose the best sketchbook for you, so I'm just gonna go into it slightly here. I really like Stillman and Byrne, and I like this size right here, which is 9x12, and it has 150 GSM paper. That's just heavy enough for me to do the watercolor that I like, and I can even do multiple washes a lot of times, but it's not so heavy that I waste a lot of pages. In this journal, there's 100 pages, and if it were a heavier paper, heavier watercolor paper, I would get a lot fewer pages in here. And it also, on days when I'm just writing things, I feel like I'm wasting that heavy watercolor paper. This type of sketchbook is also good for me because it's easy for me to use in the field. I can fold the pages back like this and hold it very easily in my arm. This might be too big for you. It might not fit well in your arm, or it might not be the right size for you. So those are the things that you need to test. But for me personally, I noticed that when I tried to switch to a smaller journal like this, I filled fewer nature journaling pages. This is a Lectern a sketchbook, and it's very similar to a lot of Moleskine sketchbooks. And this size for me does not fit in my arm, so when I'm nature journaling in the field, I would have to hold this in an awkward position with my hands like this, and I have found that I can't nature journal for a long time holding a sketchbook like this, and it also makes it hard for me to hold my watercolor. But this could be a good size for some people. It's more portable, so it's lighter. You're gonna fill pages faster, so there are some benefits to this size of nature journal. Next size down, I do sometimes use this one. This has the exact same paper as my other sketchbook, which is a really cool thing that Stillman and Byrne does, is you can get this same paper in a variety of different formats. I like the spiral bound 9x12, but I've also been experimenting with these smaller ones as sort of a pocket sketchbook, and you can see that I've done some nature journaling just last night looking at this spider, and it's really nice. It fits in my pocket. I've been using it a fair amount on this trip, but like I mentioned with this Moleskine type one, this is hard for me to hold, and when I did this watercolor, believe it or not, it was harder for me to hold this and my watercolor palette than to hold this and my watercolor palette because of the way this one fits in my arm. So this might not work for everybody, but if you can find a sketchbook that fits in your arm like this, it's gonna be really, really convenient. Next most important material is going to be your drawing tool, your drawing and writing tool. Hopefully you can use the same tool for drawing and writing. That will make it a lot faster when you're nature journaling in the field, and you will fill more pages, which is our main criteria, right? So I used to always use these Pentel Click It mechanical pencils. It's 0.7 lead, so it's not super small, like 0.5, so you can make marks quickly and get information on the page quickly, which is an important criteria for me. And these are pretty great pencils. I like the way that you can refill the lead and don't have to sharpen in the field. It's pretty easy, and the eraser system on these works quite well compared to a lot of other mechanical pencils that I've used. However, now I try to go straight to ink almost all of the time. And what I found is that speeds up my nature journaling and makes me fill more pages. And filling pages is my main goal. So what I like to use now is this Pilot Fudayaku pen. It has black, it's like a brush pen type, black on one side and gray on the other side. This pen is really good for creating a visual hierarchy because I can draw with gray and draw with black on the same page. So you can see here is almost all with gray, and the gray goes really well with watercolor, by the way. And then you can see here where I used black. So in here there's black, in here there's gray writing, and here I use the gray to go together with watercolor to create what almost looks like a straight watercolor painting. Same with this one, it looks just like a watercolor painting, but I actually started with an underdrawing of this gray pen. So this is an amazing drawing and writing tool all in one, and I would really recommend you get something that can do all of that in one. What I don't recommend is any fancy kind of drawing pencils or anything like that, and you don't really need a fountain pen. These can be fun, but not necessary for your main drawing tool. The next most important nature journaling supply in your nature journal bag is going to be chocolate. So this is an essential nature journaling supply in my opinion, and it's always really good after you do nature journaling when you're trying to get into the habit to eat a little bit of chocolate. It's good for your brain and it is rewarding yourself. So I'm in Ecuador right now and they don't have that many dark chocolates, but I do recommend dark chocolate always being in your nature journal kit somewhere where it won't melt. After your sketchbook, your main drawing tool, and your chocolate, the thing that's going to have the biggest effect on your nature journaling success is probably going to be the bag that you use for carrying your supplies. This was a game changer for me. I used to carry my art supplies in a backpack and I would never end up taking them out. It's not convenient. So having a pack that you can slide around to the front and easily open and access all of your nature journaling supplies and hopefully be able to put them in and out with one hand is going to make a huge difference. I love this bag from Patagonia and I've taken it all over the world with me for nature journaling. It has an external water bottle pocket and some other features that make it really great for nature journaling. I have other videos where I talk about best bags for nature journaling, so if you want to go more into depth on that, you can check there. But even one of those canvas shopping bags that has one strap and it's just a big bag where you can put anything into there and it's made out of canvas, even something like that could be really useful and better than a backpack where things are hidden inside and hard to get to. Another game-changing nature journaling supply that is not an art supply is binoculars. These Papilio Pentax close focus binoculars have changed my nature journaling and just the way that I see nature in journal. They're ultra close focus, so I can focus on things that are half a meter away, which means they're great for looking at flowers and even house plants. You can look at all kinds of cool bugs. You can also look at birds and everything else you would normally use binoculars for. Plus, they're not that heavy, so they're not going to be hurting your neck while you're wearing them all day long. They're very inexpensive. Check out the link down below in the description if you want to shop for these. They're very inexpensive, so that also makes me worry about not damaging them because they're not like $700 or $1,000 like some of the birding binoculars out there. These are also doable for a nature journaling and drawing while looking through binoculars. I have a whole video on how to draw while looking through these binoculars, and that's hard to do with some of the other binoculars. These in your nature journal kit is going to make a huge difference. Now I'm going to talk about a few extras in your nature journal kit that can help a lot and are really useful. First thing I'm going to talk about is these clips right here. These clips you can get at a stationery store. You might already have them. They're called Bulldog Clips, I believe, and they're super useful on windy days to keep your pages from blowing like just happened right there. All you do is open them up, clamp them down, and now you don't have to worry about that. I always pretty much start my nature journaling session by putting these Bulldog Clips on my page. Some other supplies that are extra but are really useful are tape and glue sticks. I never used to do this before, but I'm starting to more and more stick things into my nature journal, like maps, tickets, things like that. And I'm also putting in like envelopes such as this and doing more junk journaling and art journaling type techniques. You can use tape and glue to add leaves into your nature journal and other ways of collecting information and pasting into your nature journal. That can be really empowering, especially if you're not comfortable with your drawings yet. Anything that helps you nature journal more is something that should be in your nature journaling supplies. One thing, oh gosh, getting a headache from all of that sun. One thing that can help you nature journal more is having a good hat and other good sun protection. The other thing I really like are these sun gloves that keep my hands from getting sunburned, and I don't have to put sunscreen on my hands, which messes up my watercolor. Another extra that has helped me get a lot more nature journaling in and be a lot more comfortable is a chair. A good folding chair for the outdoors can be a total game changer, and this one has been amazing for me. It's a little bit on the heavier side and sturdier side, but it's super good for doing longer sessions of nature journaling without your back starting to hurt and without having to sit on the ground. So it's not essential for nature journaling, but looking into a good chair, I have two options that I like. Getting a good chair can make you nature journal a lot longer, and remember our criteria is more nature journaling means it's a good art supply or nature supply to have in your kit. Are you still with me? We're gonna go over a few more tips, how to save money on nature journaling supplies, and then I gotta go nature journal some marine iguanas because I'm here in the Galapagos. More extras that are useful to have in your nature journaling kit are things for measuring. I have this goniometer which helps measure angles, but I mainly use it as a ruler and it has millimeters and inches. Having something for measuring is super useful. Measuring tapes is another good way. And then I also just added this little mini thermometer. That way I can add the temperature to my nature journal page and just have a little bit more interesting climatic and context information on my nature journal page. Are you still with me? It's time for that money saving tip. Actually, it's a couple money saving tips. I'm gonna talk about some of the things that you don't need for nature journaling supplies. Chocolate is not one of them. The things that you don't really need for nature journaling are, starting with fancy fountain pens. This is not that fancy of a fountain pen, and I like drawing with this. I actually really enjoy drawing with this, but this is not necessary, especially when you're getting started for nature journaling. This is not an essential supply. You don't really need this for nature journaling. Another thing you don't really need are different types of drawing pencils. This is a Prismacolor Ebony. You can do a lot of effects with it. There's a bunch of different nice, drawing pencils, and some people get really deep into that in art. For nature journaling, it's not essential. You don't need fancy drawing pencils or any kind of art pencils for nature journaling. You're better off with just a mechanical pencil or a cheap Ticonderoga pencil or whatever. You also don't need a bunch of markers with different colors. Tombow pens can be fun, but they run out of ink really fast, and they're rotten. They're not great for writing. They're not really essential nature journaling supplies. You don't really need these for nature journaling supplies. You definitely do not need fancy brushes. Fancy brushes are not necessary. You can save a lot of money here and put that into something essential such as chocolate. These fancy brushes are not necessary, and they don't work that well in the field because you have to hold water. So those are not essential. If you're going to do watercolor at all, which is also not essential, I recommend these water brushes that hold the water inside and allow you to nature journal standing up. As much as I love these, I have to say these are not necessary nature journaling supplies. You don't need to have these in your nature journaling kit. They're not essential to nature journaling because watercolor, as much as I love it, is not essential to nature journaling. So you can save a lot of money by not buying a watercolor kit. This is an amazing kit. I've gone all over the world with it. It's the John Muir Laws watercolor kit. They're mostly Daniel Smith high quality watercolors, and this palette, I can hold it really easily in the field and do watercolor landscapes and everything standing up with this amazing palette that also gives me a lot of color choices, a lot of mixing areas, and is amazing and a quick way to get color. When I got this, I got rid of tons of markers and tons of colored pencils. But once again, this is not really necessary for nature journaling. You don't need watercolor for nature journaling, especially when you're first getting started. So you don't need that. Now you know what you need for nature journaling and what art supplies are best for nature journaling. So if you still need more help choosing a sketchbook, check out this video here. And if you want some more inspiration for nature journaling beginners, check this video out here. See you next week. Bye.